The story begins with Michael, who had pursued Jessica for 3 years. They had been together for less than 3 months when she showed interest in his boss and wanted to break up.
Michael, we need to talk. It's over between us.
Earlier that day, Michael received a call from his mother asking for money again.
Mom, I don't have any money right now. Can you wait until next month when I get paid?
Even a dog can guard a house. What's the point of raising you if you can't even come up with this little bit of money?
Michael wiped away a tear, wanting to ask, "Am I really your biological child?" but couldn't bring himself to say it.
Michael, I'm leaving you. People aim higher. Good looks can't put food on the table. A man needs to have money.
Give me some time. I will work hard and make something of myself. Please don't leave.
Didn't you hear that I was just saying those things for show? Do you really think someone as poor as you could ever have money? Maybe in your next life.
Michael, stunned, had never seen this side of Jessica before. She continued her relentless attack.
Do you really think I would want to marry you and have kids, only to squeeze into a tiny rented room and eat instant noodles every day? Let me tell you the truth, my parents never approved of you. They wanted me to break up with you from the start. You're almost 30 and still this poor. What woman would stay with you? Stop dreaming.
Michael's mind buzzed with anger.
If you felt this way, why did you say you didn't care about money and only cared about me when we first got together?
Jessica's words were a blow to Michael.
You always asked me for money to buy this and that. I never spent a penny on myself and gave it all to you. I ate instant noodles every day and took you to fancy restaurants for our dates. How did I ever wrong you?
His thoughts continued.
Your parents told me just last week that they considered me their own son, coaxing me into giving them all my savings to renovate their new house. And now you tell me they never approved of me?
Though his mind was raging, Michael couldn't utter a single word.
Jessica, why waste so many words on him? He's hopeless. From now on, I'll buy you whatever you want.
Michael's boss, with his greasy face and pudgy fingers, wrapped his arm around Jessica's waist and planted a kiss on her face.
Brother Chang, walking to work every day isn't practical. Buy me a car, will you? Hey, that one looks nice.
Jessica's eyes gleamed as she stared at a sleek black car speeding by.
Some people, couldn't afford it in 10 lifetimes. Michael, this is the life I want, and you, a poor bumpkin, can never give it to me. Do you understand?
Just then, a brand new Rolls-Royce came to a smooth stop in front of Michael. The door opened and several tall men in suits and sunglasses stepped out. They compared a photo and walked straight towards Michael. Just as Michael thought he might be taken away, they stopped and bowed respectfully in unison.
Young master, we are here to take you home. Please get in the car.
Michael was stunned, and so was Jessica. By the time Michael came to his senses, he was already seated in a spacious, clean Rolls-Royce that smelled of perfume. The images of Jessica and his boss's incredulous faces lingered in his mind, both looking utterly ridiculous.
Thinking, how did I end up here?
The car drove steadily down the road, and Michael noticed the envious glances from people outside as they looked at the car. Once upon a time he was one of those people, perhaps even worse off than them. Michael's tiny rented room had no space for him to move around, just a bed and a chair. He felt so ashamed that he didn't dare to bring Jessica there. Maybe it was because she came once and never wanted to set foot in that place again, but he chose to ignore the obvious disdain on her face.
Chuckles, what a joke my life has been.
But soon Michael was shocked again. The car drove into the most affluent villa area in the city, Spring River Garden.
Thinking, whose young master am I? How did I become the young master of a wealthy family?
When the car stopped in front of the largest villa in the area and the driver opened the door for him, Michael was overwhelmed by the grand sight before him, his mind unable to process it.
Can I borrow your sunglasses?
Once Michael put on the sunglasses, he no longer held back his emotions and cried with excitement. Finally, fortune was smiling upon him. He followed the bodyguard into the courtyard, feeling a bit timid. Everywhere he looked, he saw wealth. Even someone as inexperienced as him could tell that the intricately carved gates, the stone lions at the entrance, and the park-like gardens were incredibly valuable.
Look at me, a mechanic in overalls, stained with paint like marks and tattered shoes. The most expensive thing on me is probably these sunglasses.
Thankfully, the sunglasses hid his expression of inferiority.
Young master, please come in.
The bodyguard escorted Michael to the door but did not follow him inside. He hesitantly looked around the luxurious villa, standing awkwardly on the doormat, unsure whether to change his shoes or just walk in.
Are you Michael?
A middle-aged woman stood on the staircase, dressed elegantly, arms crossed, looking down at him. For a moment she seemed familiar, but Michael didn't miss the flash of disdain in her eyes.
Yes, I am Michael. May I ask why you brought me here?
Your biological father is the owner of this house. He is currently abroad for an important project, so he left you in my care. I am the lady of this house. I held you when you were little, so you can call me Aunt Emily. I have a daughter who also lives here. She usually stays at school during the week, but you should keep your distance from her.
Michael frowned, hiding his discomfort. Just then, a pretty girl who looked like a high school student came downstairs.
Mom, where did this country bumpkin come from? He reeks of poverty and is dirtying our house. Mom, get him out of here.
He is the son that Uncle Smith has been searching for all these years.
What? Really? Our house is not a place for just anyone to enter. Make sure you know what you're doing before bringing someone back.
The girl stomped her foot in anger.
Find a room for him to settle in.
And so, Michael moved into this villa that he had never dared to dream of. I opened the door to my room, feeling a surge of emotions. Just last night, I was sleeping in a cramped rental room, worrying about the landlord's recent notice of a rent increase. I fell asleep to the sound of the tenants upstairs arguing, thanks to the thin walls. But today I woke up in a bed larger than my entire rental room. Life is truly unpredictable. Upon waking, it felt as though I had an epiphany. Given life's unpredictability, I could be back to having nothing in the blink of an eye. From this moment on, I should seize the day and live for myself. So, I decided to shed my timid demeanor from yesterday. I had to live up to my new status. I checked my phone and saw dozens of missed calls from Jessica. I clicked my tongue and decided to ignore her for now. I stepped out to get some breakfast. After a bit of searching, I couldn't find anything to eat in the house, so I went out and bought a deluxe version of a local pancake. Humming a tune, I returned to the villa and found Aunt Emily and her daughter having breakfast. As soon as her daughter saw me, she threw her knife and fork onto her plate.
Ugh, how disgusting. I can't even eat breakfast in peace. I'm done,
she said, storming upstairs. Aunt Emily's face darkened.
Our family is used to dining alone. We don't want an extra person at the table. From now on, if you see us eating, stay away.
I scoffed internally. After all these years, she still hadn't married my dad, yet she acted like she owned the place. Ignoring her, I sat down at the table. The pancake I had earlier wasn't enough, and the breakfast spread looked quite sumptuous.
I don't know how you've been living all these years, but you have no manners. Let me warn you, your father despises people like you.
I paid no attention to her disdainful expression or her words. No matter what, my dad was still my father and she wasn't even his wife. Seeing that I was unfazed and continued doing as I pleased, she angrily threw her knife and fork down with a clatter and left the table. Feeling satisfied after the meal, I decided to call Jessica back. The call was answered almost immediately, which had never happened before. Usually she ignored 9 out of 10 of my calls.
Why pretend with me? If you had told me your family was this wealthy, I wouldn't have gone with your boss. Let's get back together.
I narrowed my eyes, wondering how she had the nerve to say such things. When I didn't respond, she started crying and sniffling.
I know you're a person of integrity, despite your circumstances. I only broke up with you to motivate you to strive harder. You should understand my good intentions.
Have some self-respect, Jessica. You put on a good act before. I chased you for so long without seeing your true colors. When I genuinely loved you, you didn't appreciate it. Now you come begging? Too late. If I still had nothing, would you come back?
She hesitated, and I heard my boss's angry voice in the background.
You can't even win someone over properly. What are you good for? Return the bag I just bought you.
I paused, then hung up with a cold laugh. People like her get what they deserve. The boss's auto repair shop had been struggling lately, losing money. With Jessica's This morning, I walked quite a distance to buy a pancake. The villa area I live in lacks public transportation, not even a taxi in sight. I began to worry about future travel issues. Then it dawned on me, aren't I a young master? How can a young master go out without a car?
Aunt Emily, give me a car.
Aunt Emily looked displeased, taking several deep breaths to maintain her composure.
Uncle John, get him a car from the garage, just that Mercedes.
With so many cars in the garage, she gave me the least valuable Mercedes. Then she looked at me disdainfully.
Have you even gotten your driver's license? I'm sure you haven't. Better assign him a driver too.
No need, I have a license. I'm not like you wealthy ladies who are nothing without money. I have plenty of skills.
I hadn't mentioned that my license was for driving a truck. I had worked as a truck driver for a while to make a living. Trucks and cars shouldn't be that different, right? But I spoke too soon. The villa area was fine with few cars. But once I got to the city, the traffic increased. After dodging left and right, an elderly lady appeared in front of me. I braked hard and didn't hit her, but the car behind me hit mine. The driver got out, ready to curse, but seeing I was driving the latest Mercedes, he held back, his face turning pale. Knowing I was at fault and not being unreasonable, especially now that I had money, I got out, intending to speak.
Hey, aren't you the guy who fixed my car before?
He glanced at my car, his expression complex.
So you quit and became a driver?
Buddy, I'm not a driver. This car is mine. It's new and not insured yet. Let's talk about compensation.
I didn't plan to let him off. Although I braked suddenly, the basic rule is that the rear-ender is always at fault. He looked at me in shock, disbelief on his face. Before he could react, I took him to the repair shop where I had worked for years. Standing at the shop's entrance again, a wave of sorrow washed over me. Half of the humiliations in my first 20-something years of life happened here.
Michael, what are you pretending for? Late to work at the end of the month? You'll lose another $500 from your full attendance bonus.
He was the one who always mocked me. We were both at the bottom of society and he used to sympathize with me. But after I got a girlfriend, Jessica, he started opposing me, making my life miserable and getting me scolded by the boss daily. He liked Jessica. I had known for a long time.
I won't be coming to work anymore, and I don't need this month's salary.
He was stunned for a couple of seconds before continuing to mock me.
This job is probably your ceiling. You can earn $6,000 or $7,000 a month. What else are you going to do? Don't bother.
I wondered how he felt now, seeing the boss with Jessica. Would he dare to be so arrogant towards the boss? Just as I was about to speak, a familiar voice interrupted me.
Hey, Michael, what brings you here? Need a car repair?
The boss heard the voice and came out from inside. When he saw me, his small eyes lit up.
Yes, my Mercedes got hit. Calculate the cost so the person next to me can compensate me.
I felt a bit nauseous looking at his sycophantic face, but since his attitude was so good, I decided not to make trouble for him.
My colleague stood there, stunned and motionless, staring at me as if he couldn't understand why the boss's attitude towards me had changed so drastically overnight.
Why are you just standing there? Go fix Michael's car right now. If you don't provide good service, you can forget about your salary this month.
He hurriedly went to fix the car.
Hey, you braked suddenly. That's why I hit you.
Oh. You rear-ended me. Do you need me to explain to you that the one who rear-ends is always at fault?
I maintained a perfect smile, but my words were enough to infuriate him.
You little punk, driving a Mercedes and forgetting who you are? When you were fixing my car on the ground, where was this attitude?
He started to lose his temper and cursed at me like last time. I snorted inwardly, this guy really didn't get it. With a smile on my face, I discreetly called the traffic police. He was still cursing when the police arrived, and he was dumbfounded when he saw them.
TSK, my new car wasn't insured yet, so the compensation would probably hurt him financially for a while.
The boss tried to mediate. I knew what he was up to. Remembering how he used to insult me, threaten to dock my pay, and force me to work overtime, not to mention his hand around Jessica's waist, I didn't hold back.
I know what you're going to say. The shop has been losing money, and that's not sustainable. Listen, I'm buying this shop. Pack your things and leave tomorrow. As for the rest of the staff, if you can sincerely apologize for how you've treated me over the years, I won't hold a grudge, and you can stay. If not, pack your things and go.
These greedy capitalists need someone like me to put them in their place. After saying that, I ignored everyone and headed back to my mansion. Who would have thought? Yesterday I was working at this shop, and today I'm the owner. While my Mercedes was being repaired, I hummed a tune all the way home. By the time I got home, it was already dark. Aunt Emily was sitting on the sofa, looking ready to confront me. Her daughter was next to her, pouting while playing a game. As soon as Aunt Emily saw me, her face darkened.
Where's the car?
I was taken aback for a moment. It got into an accident and is being repaired.
She slammed her cup down on the coffee table and frowned at me.
I just gave you that new car this morning, and you've already damaged it?
Mom, you have to understand, he hasn't seen anything nice in years. It's understandable that he got too excited and damaged it.
Aunt Emily looked displeased.
You don't understand. That car wasn't cheap. Selling him wouldn't cover the cost.
I chuckled.
Under their angry glares, I casually said,
My last name is Lee, you haven't forgotten, right? This house, that car, they belong to my dad. My dad hasn't said anything, so why are you barking?
Her daughter, being young, couldn't handle my provocation and immediately jumped up to hit me.
Hillbilly, say that again if you dare.
The door slammed shut heavily and Aunt Emily stood up nervously. Her daughter also adopted a more obedient and cautious demeanor. A man in his 40s or 50s walked in. The moment he saw me, tears of excitement streamed down his round face.
Child, after all these years, I finally found you.
He choked up before he could finish his sentence. The atmosphere was thick with emotion. Thinking about the hardships I had endured over the years, I started crying too. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Aunt Emily and her daughter standing there awkwardly. Just as I was crying my heart out, my dad suddenly shouted,
I asked you to take care of my son, and this is how you do it.
I shuddered and stopped crying, wiping away my tears, ready to watch the drama unfold.
You let my son wear these ragged clothes? And that Mercedes, even if he wrecks 100 of them, I can afford it. Who are you to lecture him? You and your daughter have been living off me all these years, and I haven't said anything. Now that my son is back, if you can't tolerate him, then get out.
Aunt Emily's face turned pale.
Mr. Smith, that's not what I meant. Even though we didn't get married, we've supported each other for so many years. I've always treated Michael as my own son. Please give me another chance.
She started wiping her tears and then her daughter joined in.
Uncle Smith, I've always seen you as my father. Please don't kick my mom and me out.
My dad pondered for a long time, sighed and said to me,
Michael, Why not give them another chance? It would make me happy to have more people who care about you.
Aunt Emily quickly smiled at my dad's words.
Michael, Aunt Emily will treat you well. She nudged her daughter. Hurry up and call him brother.
The girl pouted reluctantly and squeezed out a, "Hello, brother." I smiled, realizing it was all just a show of borrowed authority.
Michael, from now on, your name will be Michael Smith. A journalist has already contacted me. Get ready, I'll take you to meet him tomorrow.
Okay.
Knowing I'd be in the papers tomorrow, I lay on the 2-meter bed, unable to sleep. The journalist was efficient. The interview was in the morning, and by the afternoon I was on the front page. Wealthy man searches for son for 20 years, finally reunites. Looking at the photo in the newspaper, my dad was dramatically wiping his tears, while my smile was harder to suppress than an AK, but I still managed to look like I was crying with joy. Overnight, I became an internet sensation. Michael stared at the 99+ missed calls on his phone, all from people he had known over the years, most of whom had taken advantage of him when he was down. He shook his head in disbelief.
It's true what they say, when you're poor, no one cares. When you're rich, even distant relatives come knocking.
Amidst the long list of missed calls, Michael spotted the names of his foster parents. He remembered how he used to dread their calls as they always asked for money, escalating from hundreds to thousands. As he reminisced, his mom called again.
Michael, I saw the news. Why didn't you tell us?
Her tone was unusually gentle. Michael felt torn between gratitude for their care and deep resentment.
Michael, I heard you're living in a big villa now, something with spring in the name? Your dad and I have packed up and are on our way. We'll be there tonight. Finally, we can enjoy the good life with you.
Come on over. I'll pick you up when you arrive.
Michael's biological dad hadn't even come home yet, and his foster parents were already at the door, hauling bags into the villa.
Good thing we found Michael back then. We've really benefited from him.
Michael wore a faint smile, feeling a twinge of excitement because someone else would soon be more uncomfortable than him.
Who are you people? How did you get into my house? Where are the bodyguards? Get them out of here, they stink.
Before Michael could say anything, his foster mom stepped up to confront her.
Who am I? My son is the rightful owner of this villa. Who do you think you are to kick me out?
The moment their eyes met, both women froze, then showed signs of guilt. Michael caught this and grew suspicious. Just then the door opened and Michael's biological dad walked in.
Dad, these are my foster parents. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here today.
Michael emphasized the words, "if it weren't," and the guilt on their faces deepened. His foster dad nudged his foster mom and stepped forward.
When we found Michael, he was just a tiny thing, out in the freezing cold. If we hadn't taken him in, he would have frozen to death. We had no choice but to bring him home, and we've raised him for 20 years.
He wiped away fake tears as he spoke.
Thank you for taking care of Michael all these years. Don't worry, I will compensate you. Here's $5 million as a token of appreciation.
Michael's foster mom was ecstatic. He felt a heaviness in his heart and turned to his dad.
Dad, we've built some feelings over the years. Why don't we let them stay here for now?
His dad hesitated for a moment.
All right.
But Aunt Emily immediately objected.
No, they can't stay here.
Michael's dad. The villa was unusually quiet that night as my foster parents settled in. However, that tranquility was shattered the next morning. My dad and I, still groggy from sleep, emerged from our bedrooms, alarmed by the scream coming from Aunt Emily's room. We exchanged a glance, both of us startled. Rushing over, we were instantly wide awake at the scene before us.
Help! What is happening?
Aunt Emily stood there in a disheveled white slip dress, her hair in disarray. My foster dad was gripping her arm, seemingly trying to say something.
It's a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding.
My dad's face turned ashen, but there was nothing more to the scene than what we saw. Given that the man was my foster dad, my dad stormed off, ignoring Aunt Emily's pitiful look.
Michael, please explain to your dad that I didn't mean to come to Aunt Emily's room. This villa is so big, I got lost looking for the bathroom.
Don't tell me you don't know there's no bathroom in your room. Should I ask my mom?
Hearing me mention my mom, he dropped the act.
You ungrateful brat, acting all high and mighty. I've raised you all these years for nothing. If you dare tell your mom, see how I'll deal with you.
He walked off, cursing under his breath. I turned to Aunt Emily.
Good luck.
She glared at me and slammed her door shut. After all, if it weren't for me, my foster dad wouldn't be living in this house. But whether this situation arose because of me or because of her, only she would know. I knew my foster dad's nature all too well. He had a penchant for drinking and a particular weakness for women. Over the years, he had countless arguments with my foster mom over women. Just yesterday, I noticed the lecherous look he gave Aunt Emily. Dinner that evening was particularly tense. Everyone except my foster dad and me looked awful, especially Aunt Emily.
How can that vixen still live in this big house, reeking of her scent, always trying to seduce people, and yet, after all these years, she hasn't even secured a proper status?
I knew she must have heard about the morning's incident. Aunt Emily opened her mouth to retort, but my dad's cough silenced her. My foster dad acted as if he hadn't heard anything, slurping his soup and making annoying noises. After finishing his soup and a few glasses of wine, he burped and left the table. The dinner ended in an awkward silence.
Don't you feel ashamed having parents like that? It's embarrassing. Growing up in such an environment, can't you tell them to leave this house?
Shouldn't you be the ones feeling ashamed? You've enjoyed everything that should have been mine all these years, and now you stand here mocking me. Do you really have no conscience?
Her eyes widened in shock.
Need I remind you, you're not my dad's legal wife, and your daughter isn't his biological child. My dad's assets will ultimately go to me. And, Aunt Emily, are you really guilt-free about how I went missing back then? How do you have the nerve to say such things to me now?
You're talking nonsense.
Whether it's nonsense or not, we'll find out soon enough.
According to my calculations, with my foster dad drinking so much tonight, he's bound to cause some trouble. Instead of going back to my room, I found a hidden spot near Aunt Emily's room to watch the drama unfold. Sure enough, he didn't disappoint me. In the middle of the night, my drunken foster dad showed up. Alcohol emboldens the timid, and he wasn't exactly timid to begin with.
If you don't agree to my terms, I'll spill the beans about what happened back then.
My heart sank. What happened back then? I already had a hunch, but I needed to hear them say it out loud. Unfortunately, Aunt Emily seemed to be wary and pulled my foster dad into her room. The villa had excellent soundproofing, and I couldn't make out anything despite listening for a long time. Then an idea struck me. I knocked on my foster mom's door.
Where's Dad? He's not in his room. I need to talk to him urgently.
What could be so urgent at this hour? Ha! Strange. He was just lying in bed.
We exchanged puzzled glances for a few seconds before she slapped her thigh in realization.
Oh no. That old fool must have gone to that vixen's room.
She rushed out and headed to Aunt Emily's room. As soon as she opened the door, everyone was stunned. My foster dad was holding Aunt Emily on the bed, both of them disheveled. My foster mom's eyes turned red instantly. She pushed my foster dad aside and started fighting with Aunt Emily.
You wretched woman. If I can't have peace, neither will you. I'll expose all your dirty secrets. You liked Mr. Smith back then and wanted to be with him, but his family was so happy. So, you maliciously had us take his child away. All these years, you've watched Mrs. Smith wither away and Mr. Smith fall into despair. Do you have any conscience? And now you're seducing my husband? You're rotten to the core. You'll never have a good end.
My heart had already plummeted to the depths. My foster dad, hearing this, sobered up instantly. Seeing me, he shook his head vigorously and then pushed my foster mom aside.
What nonsense are you spouting, woman?
He then ran to my side, smiling obsequiously.
Your mom's talking nonsense. It's all lies she made up. Don't believe her.
At this point he was still trying to deceive me. But it wasn't up to me to believe or not because my real dad had seen everything. Before I waited for the drama, I had already talked to my real dad.
Whether I had accidentally gotten lost or was deliberately abandoned back then, I didn't believe my real dad hadn't noticed anything suspicious over the years.
After hearing what I had to say, my dad sighed deeply.
Son, you've suffered all these years. You've been through so much and still stayed on the right path. I'm proud of you. Don't worry, your dad isn't a fool either. But after 20 years, finding evidence is very difficult. So I've been waiting for an opportunity. Tonight might just be that opportunity.
The bodyguards took away my foster parents, who were kicking and screaming, and Aunt Emily, who looked utterly defeated, to the police station to file a report. The saga of the wealthy family searching for their lost child finally reached its true conclusion. When I saw the police report, a mix of emotions surged within me.
Aunt Emily was once my mom's good friend. After giving birth to a daughter, she divorced and sought refuge with my mom. However, it turned out to be a story of betrayal.
I believe your husband is destined for great wealth.
At that time, my parents were deeply in love, and I was their 4-year-old son. Aunt Emily devised a malicious plan. She took me, just a 4-year-old child, and handed me over to my foster parents.
I'm so sorry, but I have to do this.
My poor mother blamed herself for losing me until her last breath, unaware that it was a cruel trap. Fortunately, justice prevailed and my dad found me. Their fate was a 10-year prison sentence.
Son, we found you. Justice has been served.
When everything settled, my dad asked me, despite our family's wealth, what I wanted to do in the future.
So, what do you want to do, son?
I had already made up my mind. I wanted to start my own business. I bought the auto repair shop from the boss and planned to renovate it. Over the years, I had honed my skills in car repair, and I was determined to perfect it. At the grand opening of the new shop, I saw Jessica standing in the distance, holding her parents back from approaching. She looked haggard after a few months, and her pregnancy was evident. I was taken aback and disgusted. It turned out she had been involved with my boss while she was with me.
I'm sorry.
Now that I had bought the shop, the boss had disappeared, leaving Jessica behind. Her parents, unwilling to suffer in silence, couldn't find the boss and came to my shop every day to cause trouble.
Where is he? We demand answers.
As I listened to the compliments from a whole new social circle, each opening gift worth more than my previous month's salary, and saw my dad's encouraging smile despite his graying hair, a sudden thought struck me. I wanted to embark on a new venture, helping all lost children find their way home, ensuring every family could be reunited.
I'm proud of you, son.
And so, a new chapter began.
End.